Welcome back to another edition of the podcast as we preview Gameweek 22 in the Vanarama National League. It's a Tuesday night game week that we're previewing. Obviously, we're doing our show on a Monday at 9 o'clock. Seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment, our late shows, to be fair. But, Paul, it's great to speak to you.
Hello, mate. How are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, not too bad. Brilliant weekend, in fact. Of course, our boys defeated Wealdstone. Very good, especially after your 2-1 prediction, which means I get my bonus point on the prediction league. And, of course, that's a point drop for you. You should never back against the Shaman because every time... Well, you can keep doing because every time you do back against us, we always end up winning, and every time you back us, we end up losing. I think there's never been a time where we've got a Halifax result correct. But no, Paul, overall good weekend. Of course, you could take your mind a bit off the football side of things. What did you get up to this weekend?
Yeah, I was at the Shine On 90s weekender at Butlins in Minehead, so a little bit jaded this evening, Luke. A lot of bands watched over the last 3 days. I got away with not being in Halifax. I would have liked to have been to come and say hello to you guys and be amongst some of the Stones fans, but I'm kind of glad that I wasn't there now that I know that we got beat, and it wasn't a particularly exciting game either, was it?
No, it certainly wasn't. It was a very poor game. Smash and grab from us, just get the result and then get out of there. And that's basically what we did from our perspective. Much needed 3 points, after that result against Maidenhead. And, now we've got that win, we can just build on that. Of course, for you guys, it's back to the drawing board and still searching for that first away win. But talking about which were your favourite that you saw then at the weekend?
I saw a band called The Rifles, who are based down here in the south of England. They sort of tour locally. They're a real good sort of mod band. I think they're all Arsenal boys, actually, to be honest, or West Ham. So I saw them and saw some old favourites like some of those guys that are listening, Sleeper and the Wonder Stuff, and some of the 2000, The Enemy and The View, and and a couple of good cover bands in the Clone Roses, which is a personal favourite of mine, and Blurred. So watching a Blur tribute band at 11:30 on a Saturday morning after 3 o'clock finish the night before was a tough gig, to be fair.
Blur get on my nerves, so I can't imagine what a cover band would be like. I like to think about 2 or 3 of the songs, and the rest of them get on my nerves. So yeah, to be fair, I don't know what that was like. But you mentioned Cloned Roses. They're a band that I'd love to see now that Stone Roses aren't together. Were they any good?
Yeah, no, very, very good, mate. And I think they've got a really good following because the Stone Roses obviously not being together and being that little bit elusive and not playing too many live gigs over the last however many years. Having the next best thing of a really good covers band sort of helps that music keep going. And it's they're timeless songs, aren't they? They're brilliant songs. So yeah, I had a good. God, they were on about midnight. It was a late one, but no, great fun.
Yeah, it certainly was. Of course, I attended the Content Awards on Thursday evening. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to come away with any silverware. Nevertheless, it was a brilliant night, and I can only thank you guys for basically putting me in a situation where I'm being able to attend an event like that. I see, and I'm sure you guys, I've saw like my childhood icons in the YouTube world, the ones that, it's a bit of a cliche, but ones that, inspired me basically when I was first starting out, fellow podcasters at a lot higher level. But yeah, it was just brilliant, to be fair, to be in the same room as people like that and catch up with other National League fans as well who had made the final 2. So yeah, thank you very much, and hopefully this time next year we will have just attended the event again. I'm hoping so. We'll get there at least, and then hopefully next year we can come away with some silverware. But yeah, massive shout out to Bees Pod for winning. Brilliant podcast on Barnet. I've listened to them a few times now. And if there's any Barnet fans watching or fans of the opposition who would like to see an opposition's podcast, then I would certainly go in and check those guys out because, yeah, very, very good chat from what I've seen. It's basically 3 guys talk about football and just have a casual chat. So, yeah, fair play to them on winning. Anyway, let's have a look at what you guys have been saying. Keza's in. Hello, welcome to the stream, Keza. Dave's in. Said evening. Joe's in. Paul, Mr. Luke's in.
Yeah, Hello, gents. Cannot be any more happy with that result on the weekend. Yeah, they got a good result, didn't they, the Gateshead boys? So disappointed about the horrid FA Trophy draw against Rochdale. No pressure whatsoever, lads, I promise. Yeah, they've got to go try and get their way back to Wembley again. And Rochdale's not a good one for the first time out in the FA Trophy this year, is it, for the Gateshead boys?
No, it's not. We've got Altrincham out of all. If you remember what happened in the semi-final, they were seeking for revenge. To be fair, even if they beat us, it's not revenge. To be fair, losing in the semi-finals a bit different to the early rounds. But for me, I'd happily go out. I'd rather focus on the league. It's not really a competition, and this is no disrespect, but it's not really a competition I take too serious until my team somehow gets to like a quarter final, and then I start actually taking notice of it. I don't know what everyone else's thoughts is on that, but for me, with how we've started the season, I'd much rather us focus on getting in those playoff spots. But for Wealdstone example aside, that might be in a bit of a relegation scrap, and I'd like to think they're a bit too good to be involved in that. Maybe an opportunity for your guys to maybe have that Wembley trip. You never know.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, we won it in 1985. We were the first non-league team to win the non-league double, and it's been a really sort of fallow period in those next few years. Since then, Luke, in terms of cup success for Wealdstone, even getting into first round proppers of the FA Cup. We've got FA Trophy semi-finals on our resume from the last few years and close calls, but I think we haven't won an away game in a year now. So getting a home draw against Billericay, who are in the Isthmian League Prem, is a good draw for us, and one that starts us off with that road to Wembley. And as you know, the Vale is only sort of 3 or 4 stops up the line on the Met line, so it would be great for us to get to the famous old ground once again. Yeah. And like you said, I think some of these top sides in the National League probably don't take it as serious as they maybe should in those early rounds. We've got to take advantage of that and go as deep as we can. And I think we've definitely got we've got the ability to go all the way. We saw Gateshead and Halifax do it last year. We've seen teams in the past from lower divisions and lower down the National League get there. So
you think about it, you look at the side. There aren't many like proper huge sides like a Chesterfield or a Notts County or Wrexham or Stockport or Southend that have ever made the final. Actually, Wrexham did, but have actually won the competition. And that's because they don't particularly take it seriously. And like you've mentioned, and that's when other sides can basically capitulate on that. Because we saw last season, Wrexham and Notts County didn't take it serious and they got knocked out. And then there was an opportunity for a Halifax and Aldershot or Gateshead to make the final. And of course, we managed to capitalise on that. And, a side like Wealdstone, it do them the world of good, not just for the day out, which I know your fans would love, but also for the finances that you'd get from that competition as well. Of course, England are currently playing, which means the numbers are probably a little bit lower than usual as it's showing at the moment. I was hoping because, it did go 1-0 down, and then as soon as we start the stream, they equalised, which I think's made everyone turn back on to watch the England game now. But we've got a few of our international fans who are watching, and I say international fans, a fan of a team in the division above. Michael Stark is here. Go ahead, Luke, with the fire emojis. Michael, it's great to see you tuning in to the podcast. Long time no see, or long time since you last tuned in anyway, with Wrexham getting promoted. Of course, you guys going strong at the moment, apart from the Accrington result, which we won't speak about too much as it is a National League podcast. But yeah, Michael, thank you for tuning in to the podcast this evening. Like I said, we do miss the Notts and Wrexham fans that tuned in last year, so it's good to see a few still tune in on a regular basis. Paul Ash is in.
Yeah, this is even all guys. Ash from ATSC, the Aldershot fan.
Yeah, it seems. Well, Aldershot, of course, had a bit of a power result, didn't they, against Rochdale? So we'll have to speak about them shortly. Lloyd is in, the Dorking fan. Hey up, Lloyd. Welcome to the stream, mate. And then we've got Kezza's in.
Kezza's Wednesday night.
Oh, yeah, Oldham are playing on Wednesday, aren't they?
I had to think about that. Yeah, Wednesday night, yeah. Oldham playing Barnet is probably the pick of the round, isn't it, I would suggest?
Yeah, there's a few games you could maybe, put in the hat for that. But yeah, it's certainly one that, I think it's a big game. Of course, with Oldham getting a good result at Woking, getting in a bit of form at the moment, and Barnet not so much fallen off a cliff, but they've had 2 poor results against fellow playoff contenders and a title contender as well. I think their expectations from being in the title race about 2 weeks ago has certainly changed now to just hopefully staying in the top 3. Maybe Barnet fans still say, no, we're good enough to compete for the title. That's something I would disagree with. David is in, our Maidenhead fan. These guys never stop. Hello, gents. Welcome, David, to the stream. It's good to see you tuning in once again. You say we never stop. Well, you never stop tuning in, and we do appreciate that. Lloyd also said, are you going to tomorrow's game? Yes, I am. I don't know if that's directed at you as well, Paula. Are you going tomorrow? Are Wheelstone play? Yeah, Wheelstone.
No, they rearranged. We were due to be playing Southend down at Roots Hall. They've rearranged it to December the 2nd, I think, because we're both not in FA Cup action. So rather than have it on a midweek, they've moved to a Saturday, I think, in hope that I think Southend probably hope they're going to get more players back. So they only had 2 subs on Saturday, and possibly their embargo lifted, so they might be able to sign some more, but who knows? And obviously, it attracts more people, doesn't it, on a Saturday rather than a Tuesday night? So, yeah, so a free week for Wheelstone in their lead up to the Barnet game Saturday, which is probably good for them.
Of course, the Blue Room have also come in. Go on, Paul. I think someone's come in here and said.
He says, evening all. Oh, hang on, where's it gone? He says,
oh, it came off and went on at your lad.
Yeah. Shout out to all the overconfident Chesterfield fans saying they would batter Southend 4-0 on the pod last week. Do you still, DW, you'll still win the league?
They'll win the league.
Oh, do you still think? Yes, I think we will. I think we'll talk about Barnet, playing Oldham in that prediction, in our predictions chat. But I certainly see Barnet having that. They look like they're having that slip up at this time. Obviously, they're playing Wheelstone on Saturday, so they want to try and arrest that slide. I think Chesterfield are just a bit too strong. They've had a bit of a slip up at the weekend, but there's no disgrace losing to Southend at this time.
Especially away with how maybe the ease in the fact that the amount of players that Southend have got. But remember, I said all Chesterfield fans were going to batter them, and I know I didn't predict them to win, but I predicted a draw, and it's because Southend are so good at home. And when something like that hits them, they have that mentality that, look, we're going to play it to our advantage, and it's going to give us that extra motivation to go out there and get a result. And they didn't just get a result, but they actually got all 3 points against Chesterfield. And I knew it'd be a bit of a banana skin for Chesterfield, to be fair. And I don't think it's any major concern for Chesterfield. I think this Woking game will be interesting now. But if they bounce back against Woking, they're back on top of the league. They're still clear. They can still go 8 points clear if they win the game in hand. So for me, there's no concerns there for Chesterfield. I reckon they'll win the league still. Every side at some point stumbles, and I think Chesterfield have just had a bit of a poor result. But to be fair to Southend, they've capitalised on that. And it's a question. It was titled in the video, can Southend United win promotion this season? Now, I think the first thing is, can they get into the playoffs? Do you think that minus 10-point deduction is going to stop them this season?
Well, it doesn't look like it has. I mean, I think if they had the 10 points, they'd be in the playoffs already. And, picking up wins against Chesterfield and being consistent as they are, especially at home, they're a strong team. And listen, if they can ride out the next couple of weeks with 2 or 3 subs on the bench and not try and get any more suspension injuries, I can't see any reason why they can't get promotion. It's not going to obviously be through winning the league. They're going to probably have to get into the bottom end of the playoff picture. But they've got a very good manager. They've got what is a very good setup, irrespective of what Ron Martin has done to them. They seem to be able to still have that good full-time setup, and that's going to hopefully set them in good stead. And like I said, I think it's going to be important the next few weeks with the embargo. Is it going to be lifted? I mean, I have no idea. Southend fans might be able to shed a bit more light on as to why that hasn't been lifted yet, and has the takeover fully happened? Where does the land lie with that? But if that does settle down, they can get some players back. They're certainly a threat because they're a good football team.
We've just created a poll, and it basically asks you, where will Southend basically finish? Will they get inside the playoffs? Will they come up just short, or will they even win promotion this season? Now, you guys get your thoughts on that. And we've had one here. Who do you think, Luke, will win the title? For me personally, like I've said, Chesterfield. I think I don't think the title's going to be the focus of this podcast and of the league this season. I think the focus on the upper side of the league will be who goes up with Chesterfield. That's going to be the main focus. Last season it was who's going to win the title out of Wrexham and Notts County. This season I think it's playoffs. Paul, you mentioned there you have the same opinion, don't you, that Chesterfield are going to win it?
I was a little bit more, you were a little bit more confident a couple of weeks ago. You just felt that Chesterfield were done and dusted almost, and but I had an inkling that Barnet were going to sort of hang on to their coattails. They've slipped up the last couple of weeks, and it's inevitable. Teams are going to go through a bad patch. It may be that Chesterfield have theirs. They lost on Saturday. Who's to say that they got Woking who need a new manager? They need some points on the board in the week. Yeah, tomorrow night. They might go. What you got to bear in mind with Chesterfield, Luke, is I think they'll win the league, and I think you're right. Is who comes second, who goes up with them. But every team now who turn up to play Chesterfield, a bit like they did with Wrexham and Notts last year, it's almost, and I don't mean this flippantly, it's almost like their cup final. You know how they say it's like their cup final. They're going to raise their game because they're going to want to be the team that beat Chesterfield. So Chesterfield are having to go full tilt every week. Whereas, if they come up against the likes of Wealdstones, Kidderminsters, Maidenhead, as an example, would teams put in the same, I'm playing devil as here, would they play the same level of intensity as they would if they're now going in to play Chesterfield? Because Chesterfield are there to be shot at. And so, I think if you liken it to when Man United were good under Alex Ferguson, teams went there and everyone wanted to beat Man United. Arsene Wenger's Arsenal, everyone wanted to beat Arsenal. So they go there and they play that maybe a bit different to they would every week. And Chesterfield have got to face that now, being top of the table. Everyone's gunning for them. So they got a tough gig for them between now and the end of the season to win that league. And I think they will, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as that because of the way teams are going to play against them.
I think away from home's when sides will be able to get points off Chesterfield this season. I think at home Chesterfield will be too strong. It's a bit like you mentioned. It's a bit like Wrexham in it last season. Everyone wanted to be the side that had beat Wrexham, and when they, we saw Accrington Stanley when they beat. I don't know if you saw, but when they beat Wrexham, they went crazy. It like they'd won the Champions League, and that's probably what it. I don't think to the same extent, but that's what every side will be wanting to do when they've come up against Chesterfield this season. It'll be a win like no other if they manage to beat Chesterfield. Even if you've got nothing to play for, you want to be the side that beats Chesterfield. Heed Army podcast is in. It was a great evening speaking to, I believe, Dave, who will be running that account and be on with us at the moment. Yeah, brilliant to speak to you. If you wanted, I was hoping to get a Gateshead fan on tonight, and I forgot to message you because I've been so busy. But if you ever wanted to come on for like a 10-15 minute chat now, I don't know if you're in the right position. I could easily send you a link. So if you want to do that, Dave, you can come on and me and Paul will have a bit of a chat to you about Gateshead and the start to the season. But yeah, we're willing to speak to it on Thursday, if not. Also, Paul John's in tonight.
Yeah, hello, John. He's a new regular. It's nice to see you again, John. Good evening to you. As hopefully you enjoy the rest of the chat as we go through it, and please keep putting in those comments.
Yep. Also, the Blue Room's on and said there are plenty of content awards wins in the future. Luke, keep smashing it. Cheers. I tell you what, the award that I'll donate to the stream, best co-host in the country. Paul, you deserve an award for all the help you've helped me out with this. So yeah, thank you very much for helping me out being a co-host. And to be fair, yeah, if there was an award for that at the Content Awards, you would certainly be nominated.
Oh no, that's nice to know, Luke. It's a pleasure. I enjoy doing. Honestly, I enjoy doing this. It's I don't get to speak National League much to sort of friends and family because I don't know what I'm talking about. So to be able to actually talk to you and the wider audience is good fun. And I'm glad and appreciated that people do take the time to listen and feedback, nice comments and get involved in the stream for you and obviously myself being involved.
And then Mr. Luke has come in and he said,
says if you get an FA Trophy run in, it helps clubs financially, and if you go out, then it isn't the end of the world. Just focus on the league and the season on a high. Yeah, so it's one of those, isn't it? You take it as seriously as you want to take it. I think football clubs should take it seriously. It's the non-league FA Cup, isn't it? And there's a lot of prestige and to winning it as a non-league football team and where you get to play at Wembley and it's a nice day out and all that sort of thing. But to have that on your record books as a football club for the rest of your history is, I certainly think, sometimes clubs are maybe a bit disrespectful to it and should sort of give it more of a go. But that's just an opinion of mine. And I think players would probably be in the same boat, but managers and owners will probably feel slightly differently, especially if you're in and around the playoffs.
Now, I do believe the Heed Army podcast is going to be joining us shortly, just for 10 minutes or so. I'm going to speak to them. We won't keep them too long, but it'd be good to speak to them about Gateshead's start to the season. So get your topics focused from now on about them. We're going to ask him a bit about his thoughts on the start to the season, not just Gateshead, but as a whole. So, hopefully he'll join us very shortly. But Ash has come in and he said, nice to see some appreciation for the best midfielder in the league. The stream, on the thumbnail, of course, we've got Dan Gardner, who's on the thumbnail. He had a brilliant performance against Woking, a man of the match performance. And there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about him as a player. He's a player that shouldn't be at this level. I think due to injuries and probably due to his age. Maybe he says he's winding down with his career now. He's obviously in non-league, but he's certainly one of the better midfielders in this division. And we can kind of see that with Oldham when he's got good midfielders around him. Of course, we've talked, haven't we, about Oldham and them not being strong enough in the midfield this season. A lot of that is down to the injuries that they've had. But do you think if they kept Lundstrom, Ward and Gardner fit, do you reckon that Oldham midfield is good enough to be inside the playoffs this season?
Oh, I think without a shadow of doubt. And if you take Lundstrom was very good for Altrincham, wasn't he? And clearly has decided to maybe move to a club where he feels he may push on a little bit. Couple that with Gardner. I think Gardner, when you think about the quality of a player like him in National League, that's really difficult, isn't it? Because we all call it non-league, Luke. We talk about non-league football. We love non-league football, but the stark reality is the National League is professional football. It's Division 5, and I think it shows a lot to the National League that players like that may not have many options, but takes that chance of coming down to that level. And I say coming down quite lightly because I think it's proven when you look at EFL Division 2, Notts, Wrexham and Stockport, who have all been National League in the last 2 or 3 years, have all, they're top in League 2. So I think, the top end of our league is as good, if not better than EFL 2. We've got some strong teams in this league. So I know we called it non-league and it is non-league because it's not in the EFL, but to have the likes of Gardner drop in, I know Will Grigg, even at his age, drop in, those sorts of players, it goes to show the quality National League's got. So I'm not surprised we see players like that. I think probably salary-wise that they get paid well enough to be able to play at this level. They've got the full-time setups. They've got the structure that a lot of league clubs have. So I'm not surprised we see players like that in National League. The likes of Bostock in Notts.
Yeah. When he was at Notts, was in this division with Notts.
He's had a stellar career. He's proved himself in Europe. Came and played at Notts. He probably didn't have as many options, but he's not dismissed it and said no. He's going to come and play because he sees the quality. I think hopefully we'll see more and more players like that in the National League. It makes it more difficult for the likes of Halifax and Wealdstone and Maidenhead to compete. But as a fan, I think it's good that we've got these players in the league.
Well, we've got Dave joining us from the Heed Army podcast. It'd be great to get him on, see if he's recovered from the Football Content Awards. Dave, hello. How are you doing? You good?
I'm really good. Nice to be on. Thank you for the invite.
No, Willie, it's great to have you on. A bit of a mix, isn't it? We've got a Southerner, a Yorkshireman, and now a Geordie on the podcast. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm good. Just nervous about tomorrow's game. Looking forward to watching it on National League TV. Gateshead will be at Solihull, but after Saturday and obviously last weekend as well, full of confidence at the minute, being a Gateshead fan.
Yeah, of course. You guys against Barnet the weekend. I don't believe you travelled down, but to go there, the first side to actually beat Barnet this season. It must have been a brilliant performance for you guys. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was sitting. It's my mother-in-law's birthday, so and typical. She wanted to go for a meal at 3:00, so I'm sitting there at the table looking at updates on Twitter. And the first half was just we hit the bar. I think we hit the bar, hit the post. It was just chance after chance after chance on Twitter, and you're like, "Oof, well, we might scrape a draw here." That's the pessimist in me. And then when we took the lead, I said, "Right, let's just pray to hold on," and then to double the lead and coast it to the end was fantastic. Oh, I wonder if my camera went there. No, it was just an absolute fantastic result, and to score 8 goals in 2 games, 2 clean sheets. You always hope that a new manager will bring that bump, that instant thing, to bring in, a change. Not that we needed a change, but I think if there was a Mike Williamson hangover, it's gone now, and hopefully we can continue that on. But Tuesday is not going to be any easy task.
I think just what I get with Gateshead and the start of the season, of course, they've got a proper identity about them. And when Williamson left, how I see it is, I genuinely think that they were going to be fine with Elliott. The problem is Williamson going to come back for the squad in January? Is that something that you're concerned with, or do you think?
I don't know. I think I just heard obviously Paul talking about how the league is very similar to each other. The teams that make the step up are continuing to progress. I just feel that MK Dons are probably in a different wheelhouse now, and I think the money and the what's at their disposal now at MK Dons, what they can offer. You've got that ground. Yes, I know there's a cloud over them, how they were formed and things like that. But if you get that right, there's no reason why that football club can't be in the Championship in 2 or 3 years' time. And that's what you're selling to players now. Yes, Gateshead have some very good players that I think could play at a much higher level. I would say most of the squad, if I'm being honest. But I don't think they'll come in for them. If they do, fair enough. The players have earned the chance to do it. But on the good side is most of the players are on a 2-year contract, so they'll have to pay up for them. So that it all works out, swings and roundabouts. But no, I'd be shocked if they came in for anybody. But then again, you've got Stephen Wern, who is like the non-league Messi at the moment, as is Billy Chadwick. But it's an exciting time. We've got value in the team, in the squad, and that's something that Mike Williamson's left a legacy there. Not only the brand of football that we've got, but there is the club has assets, as it were, on the pitch.
Paul, what do you think of Gateshead then so far? Because we've spoke about them quite a lot, haven't we? And about the identity that they've got behind them, and about them being a surprise package as well. Do you think they're the type of side that will be able to keep up with the rest of the league? Especially in the winter months when injuries start to hit them, or do you think that they may be a side that could potentially fall away? Like we see a lot of sides in previous years be an example of that.
Yeah. If you'd asked me this a couple of weeks ago, I think I probably would have said yes. With when Mike Williamson went and goals appeared to dry up, didn't they, Dave? And I can't imagine that they didn't play any differently under Elliott. But something Williamson obviously was doing something that Elliott wasn't quite doing at the time. But the last 2 results, getting scoring 6, it doesn't matter who you're playing against in the National League, is decent. And then
that's just sorry, didn't cut you off, but that 6-0 performance, I said while doing commentary, Dorking were not a bad side. It was just Gateshead were clinical, and I think that obviously that proved the point. They went and got a win the following weekend. They held their shape. They didn't stop trying. They played the full 90 minutes. They did not let the heads drop, and I think the proof's in the pudding. They got the result, but just Gateshead were, and Billy Chadwick, who got in his first start up front, was just electric, and that's the most positive thing for Gateshead at the minute. We're scoring a lot of goals around the team, but we only had one striker scoring goals. Now we don't, and that's the exciting thing, and maybe possibly a bit of longevity into the season for us.
Yeah, Gateshead, one of their big assets, whether you agree, Dave, or not, is the fact that teams have got to go and play at Gateshead. During the winter months, it's a harsh, challenging place to go, isn't it?
The stadium pitch is a big pitch. I know, obviously, it feels bigger because it's an open ground, as it were, within an athletic stadium, but it is one of the bigger pitches in the league, if not the country. And Gateshead are so well versed in how we pass the ball, you're going to have to work to get that ball. And if you're a part-time side coming up, or you're playing like the National League, they're not kind to teams with midweek fixtures and long distances. I mean, we played Yeovil on a Tuesday night at the back end of last year. That was awful for Yeovil to travel that distance. But if you're going to come to Gateshead, you're going to have to run to chase the ball. You're going to have to close down. You're going to have to work to get that ball back. And if you've been on a coach for 6 hours, or you're a part-time side, that is going to catch up with you. And as you mentioned before, if we can keep away from injuries, then we should be pretty consistent. I'm not saying we're going to win every game, but if we can play our game, then we're going to create chances.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, David. The bigger teams in the league can cope with injuries, a bit of suspension because of the financial disposal, especially if we go into January with a transfer window. I think with the likes of Gateshead, their first 15 are good. Who knows what their 16 to 20 is like in terms of
I think we have prospects. We've sent one out on loan, Aidan Rutledge, who scored 61 goals in 40 odd games for Berkeley Town, but that was 5 levels below. He's took the step up to full-time football. He does look a prospect, but he's been sent on loan to Scarborough for a month to get a bit more experience at a higher level. And I think he'll do very well in the National League North. But that's kind of our past that bench, past that starting lineup isn't the strongest. And prospects are great being prospects, but they've got to hit the ground running. And for a club like Gateshead, if we want to challenge, you can't nurse somebody through, which is, you've got to hit the ground running. And hopefully this loan spell, because in the past we've had a few players that have come through our ranks where they've had a couple of loan spells, maybe either in the Northern League or in the Northern Premier League, and it's just that little bit of first team football in a higher level. It's the education you need, and sadly you can't do that getting 10-15 minutes here off the bench in the National League. It just doesn't work.
I think we're going to come to the live chat, have a quick look, because there's a few questions that I want to ask you genuinely on the National League, Dave, as someone from a Gates perspective. You commentate on the game, so you've seen the majority of the teams this season and how they play. So first person that's come is Michael, who's a USA fan, as we spoke. Now he's come in and said, "Look, hope your boys are doing well. What do you see your Sharemen doing in January? Where do you see your Sharemen finishing in the table?" Now, before I give my prediction on that, you guys, especially you, Dave, you've both seen Halifax. Paul, you've heard me moan about Halifax for the past couple of weeks. You've also heard me talk a lot of positive things about Halifax, I'd hope anyway. Paul, I'll come to you first. What do you expect from Halifax this season? Because we look at sides, there's going to be a few sides in the playoffs at the moment that are going to drop off. Do you see Halifax as one of those? And if so, what would that prediction be?
I think the important thing for Halifax is that they continue to be defensively good, because if you're going to keep clean sheets, you're going to get points in the National League. You can't afford to give goals away. We talked about Wealdstone making mistakes in their box and giving goals away and losing points. Dorking lose 6 at Gateshead. These teams, you can't be doing that in the National League. You need defenses. Defenses help you win football matches. It's as simple as that. No matter what football you play, whatever brand you play, defenses help you win matches. So Halifax seem to have that ability not to let them too many in, and are good in that sense. I think where they count, and you probably agree, is that they're not too strong up top like most football teams in this league. The Holy Grail is finding that 20 a season scorer. Dave's seen many of those come through Gateshead's revolving door of strikers over the last few years. So I think, Halifax definitely are within that team. I know we say it most weeks, Luke, and Dave will probably agree. Anyone can beat anyone in this league, and there is so many teams outside of Chesterfield, maybe Barnet, just to a point, that anyone could beat anyone. And it's so hard to think who might end up in that. You've only got to look at Wealdstone example. 2 weeks ago, they were 12th and they were 4 or 5 points off the playoffs. They lose one, they're now 4 points off the relegation zone. Yeah, they've gone from 12th to 16th, and this is happening all the time. Maidenhead step up, and then so I think that at that top end, that sort of 2-10. Who knows? I mean, Halifax have got as good a chance as anybody.
I'll say I wouldn't put it down to luck, but it's the luck of injuries. I think Halifax will stay in and around that. We're flirting with the playoffs. Yeah, I think I think these are too good defensively, as we'll find out when we play out our 0-0 draw on the 16th of December.
Yeah, it's inevitable. No point turning up.
No, so we'll not even have the game. But no, I think much like Gateshead, I mean, at the beginning of last season, we were just decimated, and it seemed every week. And so, I mean, there was one game, I think there was 2 games in a row where we had to make 2 substitutions before half time. We were just getting, so unlucky with injuries. And it wasn't like everyone pulling up with hamstring. It wasn't, training or pitches. It was just, there was clatters, there was elbows, there was anything you could think of was happening. But I think if Halifax can do that, they're a strong, rigid unit. They know their job. They know they do it well. Yes, anyone can beat anybody, but if they can, do what Halifax do, I think they'll be in and around there challenging right till the last weekend of the season. It's yes, Chesterfield, I think we all know are going to run away with it, but after that, it's a free for all, and it's whoever. I think very similar to Gateshead. If you can keep the injuries to a minimum and keep yourself playing, I think it'll all work out for the teams in and around there. But that's why we love it. It's a lottery. We don't know what's going to happen each week, and as you mentioned, Dorking go out win, and but they got battered the week before, and I think that's going to be the tale of the season in the National League this year.
So Derek's coming, evening, absolutely buzzing of the Aldershot result, but this week up the Rochdale, they had a very good win as well. We'll be speaking about them when we get on to our predictions. A few people have come in. Anthony's come in here and he said, "Hi Luke, what's your view on Solihull, and also where do you think they will finish?" Now that's an interesting point because I'll give my thoughts on that. But of course, Dave Gates said heading to Solihull tomorrow. I'm going to ask you for your thoughts on Solihull heading into this game. And do you have any confidence? I think you've beaten Barnet away.
I've been following Gateshead too long. I know there's a kick in the nuts coming around the corner, so I never ever get too confident. I didn't think we'd get a result down at Barnet. A draw was what I was hoping for. But the confidence is high. We're playing well, so you're gonna go into that one and think gonna have a good chance. But I do think Solihull will be in the playoffs all season long. I don't think they'll drop out at all. I think they've got a nice little cushion as it is. They can afford themselves a loss here and there, and I think they'll be up there in and around. And I think they're one of the teams that could probably afford to go out and strengthen when they need to as well. That's another element that maybe Gateshead and Halifax don't have. Maybe it's the loan market where probably going to predominantly dive into. And but I think Solihull, it's a big test for Gateshead on Tuesday, but I think they are going to be one of the teams that's up there challenging for that second spot.
Now, I've got a good idea. We're going to come back to that game shortly. Obviously, we do our predictions. Now, do you want to stick around for the Solihull v Gateshead game?
Yeah.
About that. And then, obviously, we'll let you go. Of course, it is getting late. Yep. But I'm going to ask you a bit Wheelstone then, as we've got Paul here. What do you think of them?
Wheelstone, it is, they play a very attractive game of football. They're very similar to Gateshead, like to build from the back. It's been tough games against them in recent years. And I think, are Wheelstone still part-time? They're one of the few sides that's still part-time. And like Dorking, you see, especially when you mention about long trips coming up to Gateshead, it's one of them things where you'll see a team either drop off on 70 minutes and Wheelstone didn't, neither did Dorking. And that's a massive testament to a part-time side. Now, I know you mentioned there about non-league not being non-league, and it really isn't. I think players are more educated now, self-conditioning. A lot of them have been in the pro game. They look after themselves. They'll run probably every day of the week, keep themselves fit, match fit. And it's a different ball game to what it was maybe 20, 30 years ago, where players were probably having a tab and a pint after the game. They're looking after themselves now. There's, I mentioned conditioning, diet. So, I think that the likes of Wheelstone and Dorking as well, they really are, looking at, progressing the game as much as they can without being full time. But I think Wheelstone, it's been one of them starts of the season for you, hasn't it? You'd be hoping to like everyone, just get that little bit of consistency, and that's the difference, isn't it, in this league? I know it's just a cliche, get it as long as you can get a good run of 3 or 4 games in a row of getting wins. then I think most teams will do all right. But it's whether or not you ride that wave of luck, and and the finances. So, but that's a big thing as well. I mean, look at Fylde. They've got an abundance of finances, even though they're down the bottom. We look at the top of the league, Barnet and Chesterfield are probably really football league sides. So I think we'd all agree on that. And it's just who can mix it in there with whatever budget they've got, because Gateshead's got a very small budget, and that's my fear. I mean, I've got no fears that we won't finish the season or anything like that, but to compete and stay there all season long is probably the biggest fear. And for the likes of Wealdstone, I think it's probably the same, is it?
Yeah, without a shadow of doubt, it's you hear things and you sort of read suggestions that Wealdstone players are getting paid less than some National League South players, and without doubt, it's going to be true. And I think a bit like Gate.
I'll not say where I've heard anything from, but you hear rumours that we're on. Our budget is less than some in the Northern Premier League, which is below. So that tells you a lot about where financial power is.
The likes of Gateshead, the likes of Wealdstone, Dorking, some of those other teams that are going to come up. It's a stepping stone for these lads to get into a prestigious league in England. At the level they can get to, a stepping stone to something better for them, be it higher in the National League, be it into the EFL, a return to the EFL and the pro game, as Dave said. A lot of these lads do come out. There's just too many footballers and not enough positions in squads, and they've got to filter down somehow. And their consistency or inconsistency causes them to be at the level they're at. Yeah. They can then get that consistency back because they're playing minutes in National League football. They're playing mortgage football rather than academy football. It's sink or swim, and they either go back or they keep coming down. So, Wealdstone rely on that heavily. They always will until finances improve and the new ground comes in the future. Blah 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 blah. But Maidenhead, Dorking, Oxford City, Gateshead.
But another thing, I mean, all three of us, they're not the most attractive clubs to follow. We all love them, but there is something special about being the underdog and going away to a Chesterfield, to a Barnet, and turning them over, and then coming home and look like little old Gateshead, little old Wealdstone, and Halifax have went and done that. And it's a little bit of the romance that we've got, isn't it?
Yes,
without doubt. Yeah.
I think probably as we're just approaching 40-odd minutes now, it's probably a good chance to start the predictions. Please remember to like and subscribe, guys. Of course, it is late. I do understand it's hard for people to tune in at this time, but I do appreciate everyone that's tuning in at the moment, and the majority of you will be obviously tuning in later. So if you're tuning in later, please remember to like and subscribe and get your comments down below. I'll just get it set up on the screen now, the predictions. Hopefully this isn't a faff, as the fan on my laptop has suddenly just started. So brilliant timing for that. But we should be more or less ready to go. If I can just remove that, I think we'll be...
Look, obviously, just before that come in, obviously, there was the football
Oh. Hello? I think you've muted your mic.
There we go. It went off. What an idiot. I was just going to say, Content Awards was on Thursday, and it was a crying shame that you didn't get anything, because I think you're a very talented young man, and what you do to go right across the league and bring all these fans together like ourselves here tonight, I think is absolutely fantastic. And yes, congratulations to the Bees pod, but you were the winner in my eyes.
Well, I can't really say much more than that, but thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it, and like I said, I appreciate everyone else that tuned in as well, and everyone that voted for me as well. Overall, I just enjoyed the evening. It was good to speak to you as well, Dave. But I think we need, I'm on the wrong game. Game week. There we go. I'm just too unorganised. Solihull versus Gateshead. Before we let you go, of course, Solihull sit 4th in the league, I believe. 4th?
Yeah, they are, yes.
Yeah, and you're 5th. Now, you've got a game in hand, so you can win this game, and then you've got a game in hand to overtake them. And this is the ideal situation. You win the game, and then you can overtake them with your game in hand. How do you see this one going then, David? Is it Are you confident, or do you think it's difficult?
It's an absolute coin toss. I think that the way we're playing, you've got to think yes, but it's another long trip. Saturday was, right down to Barnet, and then to come back. Whether I had a training session today, I don't know. If it has, it's probably just been just a light one, a bit of cardio. But then they're back on the coach again, all the way down. It's just past Birmingham, isn't it? Solihull, I think it's next to the airport, isn't it? So it's a shank. So yeah, I think if Gateshead can score first, I think we might go on and win it. But Solihull have got to be respected where they are in the league. Look, they've got 37 points already on the board, but our goal difference is absolutely flying at the minute, and that's the exciting thing. And up until the other week, obviously when Chadwick got the goals, we only had one striker scoring goals. Yes, the rest of the midfield was chipping in with goals and defenders as well. But now having that extra bit of firepower available on the bench, whether who's starting or not, does bring that little bit of extra confidence. But I wouldn't go into it cocky. But I'll go for Gateshead 2-1.
Paul, how do you see it going then?
I've gone with Gateshead to win 2-0, actually. I think they're going to take a massive amount of confidence going away to Barnet and winning. If you're going to go away to Barnet and win, I think you've got to back yourself to go away to Solihull and win. Solihull don't score many goals. So if Gateshead can be good defensively with the amount of goals they can score, I certainly can see Gateshead win. The setup of Solihull allows Gateshead to play. They've got a lovely big pitch. It's a beautiful surface down there. I think they'll let Gateshead play, and Gateshead will take advantage of that and win 2-0.
For me, when I look at this game, Gateshead, like we said, they have that identity about them of just keeping the ball, which I think Solihull, like you've mentioned, will allow them to do. But Solihull will probably be happy with the opposition having the ball, because that's when Solihull are at their best, when sides get maybe a bit overconfident and then they throw a few players too many forward, which Gateshead may do if it's 0-0 and it's getting on the game, and that's where Solihull will exploit you going forward. For me, I still think Solihull are a very, very hard side to break down, very hard place to go. Gateshead had 2 very good results recently. And I think, honestly, I don't think a point would be the worst result in the world against another playoff side. I think for Gateshead at the moment, it's probably just to solidify yourselves inside of those playoffs without falling out of the playoffs. You get a point in this game, and then you've got a game in hand. Yes, it's against Chesterfield, but anything can happen. So for me, 1-1 draw. Now, Dave, before I let you go, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I love doing this. What's your prediction then for Gateshead's finish at the end of the season? And we'll clip it and play it back at the end of the season.
If we can scrape into 7th place in the playoffs, I would be over the moon. But if we don't, it's not the end of the world. It's better than a relegation battle. But if 7th to 5th, I think we can be challenging for that at the end of the season.
Brilliant, Dave. Thank you very much for coming on at short notice, and I'm sure we'll get you back on the podcast before the end of the season.
Definitely. And can I ask you one question before I go? Has your family recovered from the £80 pie and pea supper that we had on Thursday night?
Yeah, that was. I will admit that it was a 3-course meal. It said, and I've checked that, and we got 1 course, and I actually thought it was a starter. It was tiny, and I don't eat much meat at all. And even I was hungry after
peas, a smither of gravy on the plate to make it look like it was a Michelin 4-star restaurant. And my friend couldn't make it, so I had his pie. So technically, I had £150 worth of pie and peas on Thursday evening. But on that note, thank you for having us, lads, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Cheers. Thank you, Dave. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Brilliant to speak to Dave from the Heed Army podcast. Please check those out, Gateshead fans and other fans. Of course, they do commentary for every single game, at the home games, that is. So I believe probably won't be the Solihull game, but the following game will be at home. No, it might actually not be. But whenever the next at a home game, please remember to tune into those. Next game anyway, we'll go from the top. Dorking versus Dagenham. That's happened. Bromley versus Aldershot. Now, I think this is one of the game weeks. Bromley, of course, sitting comfortably in third place, I believe. Aldershot, of course, have dropped outside of the playoffs now. They've been on terrific form brilliantly recently. Of course, they had that little setback against Rochdale. Maybe there's a bit of pressure now on them because they want to stay close to the playoffs. And if they do lose, of course, Rochdale could go above them. Halifax then win. There's going to be a 4-point gap between them and Halifax. Yeah, how do you see this one going, Paul?
I mean, I can only see one winner here. Bromley are at home on the plastic. They are formidable. I think they must have the best record outside of Chesterfield, if not as good a record as Chesterfield in the recent weeks. And I think they're going to win 2-1. I think, looking at this quickly, Luke, the Aldershot position where they are, this is what I mean by who can you predict to go into the top 7. It's, a couple of results, they're going to be mid-table. A couple of results, they could be fourth. Solihull play Gateshead. Someone's going to lose points. You look at Rochdale playing Alty. That's going to be in and around there this week. So there's teams can beat teams, and it's massively difficult to sort of predict where anyone's going to end up. I think Bromley will carry on with their good run of form. They're riding high, and I think they're going to win 2-1.
Ash, who's an Aldershot fan, he said 2-1 to Aldershot. If we wear our cursed yellow kit, we may lose it in mind. Yeah, everyone's got a kit like that. We used to have a grey kit, and every time we played it, we always used to lose. But then we had a lime green kit, and every time we played in it, we'd always win. And that's the kit behind me right there. But anyway, for what I get from this game, liquid football meets hoofball. Bromley play a very industrial side of football, and Aldershot play quite an attacking, direct, attractive style of football. And if you look at it overall, Aldershot, to be Bromley, have lost one match at home overall all season, and that was to Barnet. So, of course, it's a very, very difficult place to go. And I think Aldershot would probably take a point now. Aldershot, when I look at them, though, and every time they've had defeats recently, they've reacted after it. The Dorking result, they then won 7-4. I think they lost to Barnet as well. They then reacted to that as well. And that's a good trait to have, because if you're losing 2-3 games, that's when you start to slip down the table. And for me in this game, like I said, I think it's Aldershot. They actually play pretty well against the industrial side of football, the Bournemouths in this league, the Maidenheads. They've done well against those this season. So for me, I personally think it'll be a 1-1 draw. That's how I think the game will go. A lot of people seem to be backing Bromley. We've had two people that have backed Aldershot. So it's been fairly even, to be fair. Southend at home after Solihull. Yeah, any Southend fans that are watching that don't travel up, then go check He'd Me out. So yeah, that's my prediction, a 1-1 draw. What's your prediction, Paul?
2-1 to Bromley on that one.
Brilliant. We'll move on to the next game then. Eastleigh versus Boreham Wood. Probably not one of the most exciting games to look forward to. There's always one every game week. Eastleigh, of course, climbing up the table, not on the worst form at the moment, but yet due to some horrific form earlier on in the season, there's still a fair 4 points outside of the playoffs. Boreham Wood, though, we'll look at them, 19th place at the moment. A club we've talked a lot about this season, and for once, not in a positive light. Yeah, what do you think of this game?
Oh, you took the words out of my mouth, Lou, when you said it's not the best. Yeah, not the most attractive fixture on this week's list. Yeah. I think Eastleigh are going to be marooned in mid-table for the majority of this season. Boreham Wood, I have no idea what's going on there. There seems to be a real disconnect, isn't there? We've spoken about recruitment. They just cannot seem to get a break in terms of picking results up on a consistent basis, and they're not careful. Look, they're Oxford City are closing in. Everyone else is closing in on them. They need to go and get a result at Eastleigh tomorrow night. I can't see it happening. I've gone down for a 1-1 draw. I think they just got to start looking. I think most of these teams now, with the few midweek fixtures that are going to be coming in from between now and the end of the season, there's not going to be too many of them. Any of these away teams are going to have to consider just not losing the game, try and gain a point out of it. And I think Boreham Wood are definitely going to be looking at that. They're just both teams just seem to be just something and nothing. And I think it's going to be a something and nothing game tomorrow, and it'll be 1-1.
Well, I look at Eastleigh, and they played each other. They always play each other in cup competitions. It happens every season, at least twice. I'm surprised they haven't drawn each other in the FA Trophy. Eastleigh defeated Bournemouth in the FA Cup by 5-1. Now, that'll fill them with a lot of confidence, Eastleigh. Bournemouth have had 1 win in 5. They're certainly struggling. We're not going to talk too much about them tonight. We will at some point this season again. We've both got our reasons, and everyone's got the reasons behind why they're struggling this season. For me, I'm going to back Eastleigh in this game. They're on decent form themselves at the moment. Went to Oldham, got a result, won on Saturday as well. So, yeah, I'm against an Altrincham side that are doing very well themselves. So, for me, I'm going to go for a 2-0 Eastleigh win. Matthew's come and said, don't be concerned. I'm even bored of the idea of this game. Such an average National League game. Yeah, the idea of boring Wood Park in the bus. Yeah, everyone's in to take the mick out of Bournemouth. But like I said, we can because we've never had a Bournemouth fan tune in, I believe. So that's good. Ebbsfleet versus Maidenhead. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I think this is one of the 2 fixtures alongside York and Oxford that you could put down as 6-pointers, can't you, Luke?
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely on a wretched run of form, and I know there's been discussions amongst us who sort of on this little group chat that is Dennis Kuchereb under a little bit of pressure. There's a suggestion that he might be. Others suggest that he won't because he knows the chairman or gets on very well with their chairman, but I think even chairman will sack managers if they think their status in their particular league is under threat. So, listen, Maidenhead are coming off the back again of some. I don't know what it is, Luke. We tend to talk about Maidenhead, and is it the season they go down and bang they get a result, and then they have an awful result and bang they get a result. And I think tomorrow night they'll take an Ebbsfleet side who are suffering at the moment. And they'll take a 2-0 win at Ebbsfleet and just consolidate themselves outside that bottom 4 and push Ebbsfleet further into it.
Well, I think I look at Ebbsfleet at the moment. 1 win in 15 in all competitions. It can't carry on. It simply can't. If Ebbsfleet want to survive in this division, it can't carry on. They've been so underwhelming for me. I had such high hopes for them this season. I genuinely thought they would be one of the surprise packages. You know, they look so good in the FA Cup against Halifax. And I know it's only 1 game. They stormed the league below. There's always a question about the step up. But I genuinely thought, you know, they've stormed the division, yes. But even in the FA Cup, you know, against ourselves, they looked a very good, well-organised side. So I'm sure they'll fit into the National League well. But they just haven't. And I don't even think it's a case of like the step up in level. Something's clearly not right. And I think it's a fact that maybe they've been found out now. Maybe they don't have that identity anymore because people have found them out. For example, losing to Oxford by 4-0 at home. Last season, that would have never have happened. This season, of course, it has. So for me, yeah, something certainly needs to change. And if that is a new manager, it needs to happen quickly. And maybe after this game, if the result doesn't go Ebbsfleet's way, might be the time to bring in a new manager. Because, of course, you've got to thank him for getting you promoted. But there's got to be a point where you've got to be ruthless in the season. You can't just think, yeah, thanks for getting us promoted. You can now stay and take us back down to where you basically started the job. So for me, I think after this game, if it doesn't go their way, for me, I'll be looking at a new manager. Especially coming up against a Maidenhead side that are down there. And you mentioned it being a 6-pointer. Of course, Maidenhead have kind of climbed away from it now. With 3 wins on the spin. Solihull, Halifax and Eastleigh. Those are 3 sides that some of the better sides in the division, 2 of those in the playoffs. But for me, for this game, Ebbsfleet have got to pick up a result at some point. I think when you lose to a side like Oxford at home by such a large margin, you've got to think that's the last straw. And I think you will see some tiny improvements, and I think it'll be a 1-1 draw for me. What was your prediction, Paul?
2-0 to Maidenhead.
2-0 to Maidenhead then. Okay, we'll move on to our game then now. Halifax versus Fylde. Of course, Fylde went on a bit of a decent run. Absolutely battered two sides up there, including Oldham, and then Gateshead away from home. Yet when you start to think maybe they're starting to gain a bit of momentum and are starting to show the true potential of the side and why they shouldn't be down there, they then go and lose a couple of games. Maybe you would have expected them to get a result from, especially York at home being one of those. I come into this game and I don't take these 3 points for granted, though. I think Files are the sort of team that could take points off us with the forward threats that they've got going forward. How do you see it going, Paul?
Oh, well, I mean, clearly Halifax are going to gain a lot of confidence having had to beat Wealdstone on Saturday. Beating the mighty Stones always gives you confidence. So, no, Halifax are at home. I think Fylde they're in a world of trouble, aren't they? And I can't see them winning tomorrow night. I think Halifax will win 3-1. Millie Ali's on a bit of a run, isn't he? And he's proving their talisman. Halifax, like we've discussed with Dave, don't let goals in. Fylde don't score huge amounts. They have scored a few, but not huge amounts enough for them to sort of keep getting results. And I don't think they'll do that tomorrow night. I think Halifax will just be efficient enough.
Don't back us, because whenever you back us, we never get a result.
Yeah, so sorry, Luke. I've gone Halifax 3, Fylde 1, so I'm not sure whether it's worth going tomorrow night because they might not win, but I think they will tomorrow night.
Can we just say if, let's say, Halifax don't win, or even draw, can we say from now on you've always got to back against us?
All right, yeah, let's go with that.
Brilliant. Okay, so hopefully this will be the last defeat of the season. So yeah, like I said, my prediction would be 2-0 to Halifax. I think we'll have too much for them. We managed to get through Wealdstone, we managed to get through Hartlepool, and we managed to get through Kidderminster. So we should be able to get through Fylde, who are second to bottom in the league at the moment. As we're talking about sides in the relegation zone, bottom of the league is Kidderminster, who've just had a very poor result against Dagenham at home. Hartlepool, of course, back to winning ways. It's been a long time since they last won away at York. Can they back it up with a result at Kidderminster? Paul, take it away.
I think they can. I certainly think they can. Like I said, back to winning ways, slightly more favourable sort of performance, I would imagine. Something that Hartlepool should expect to win against a York side that is struggling at the bottom. And I think Hartlepool are going to take advantage of Kidderminster as well. And I think you're right. Where you look at what Halifax have done in terms of them beating teams in the bottom 4, 5 or 6, Hartlepool have to start doing the same. If they want to be playoff contenders, they've got to start taking points off those teams in the bottom 4, 5, 6, like Halifax have proven have done recently. So, Hartlepool beating York on Saturday, they'll take 6 points if they beat Kiddie tomorrow night off teams in the bottom 4 or 5. So I think Hartlepool will win 1-0. I can't see Kidderminster don't score many, don't really let many in. I mean, look at the form of both teams. It's not the most exciting game on that list, is it? So I think Hartlepool will just take that confidence of not losing the last 2, whereas Kiddie have picked up 1 point in the last 15. So I can't see that changing tomorrow night.
Kiddie have had 3 wins all season, 1 win at home against you guys. And of course, they've only scored 12 goals. How can you score 12 goals in like 21 games and expect that to be good enough to survive in this division? Don't matter how good you are defensively, it's not going to be enough goals to keep you up in this division. And at home, I thought Kidderminster would be a difficult place to go for many sides, but it hasn't been. And I think Hartlepool will back this up. I could see them going on a bit of a run now they've got that win. So I think they're going to win this game 2-0. Next game then, Rochdale versus Alty. Maybe a bit of a derby, a Greater Manchester derby, I would say. Of course, in the league, it's a big game with Rochdale closing that gap on trying to climb into the playoffs. Altrincham need to get back to winning ways after a poor result against Eastleigh away from home. That's the first defeat that they've had in the league in over 10. Is it like 10 games nearly? I think it is. How do you see this one going, Paul?
I've gone with a draw. I think like Dave said about the sort of Gateshead Solihull game, this is almost a toss of a coin type game, isn't it? Both very good footballing teams. If you look at their last 5 games, both got very similar records. There's 5 points between them, a few positions, so a real sort of an equal sort of game to sort of analyse, I suppose, is the way to describe it. Rochdale at home, you've always got to back a home team, especially midweek. I think Alty will try and respond from that sort of bit of a blip on Saturday. I've gone with a 1-1 draw because I really couldn't separate them. It's difficult. Rochdale, I don't think played badly against Wealdstone when they lost and got done in the 95th minute. They won on Saturday, so and they'd won the previous one. So I think they've got to take heart from, although they haven't won the last 3. It probably doesn't reflect what they probably deserve. So I've gone with a 1-1 draw purely because I can't seem to divide them.
I agree with your points there. Both sides score quite a lot of goals, 14 goals for Rochdale in the last 6 matches. I'm going for a 2-2 draw. Altrincham have actually overall been quite good away from home, and I think they'll just be hoping to bounce back and get a result because it's a poor result that leaves into Eastleigh away. I did back it, to be fair, but it's a long way to go, isn't it, Eastleigh? And I think now they'll be hoping a bit of a derby they can get a result at Rochdale. Solihull v Gateshead we've previewed. Southend, that's a shame. Southend versus Wealdstone postponed. I remember you saying that as well. So we don't even get to talk about your club tonight. Is it postponed or?
No, they've moved it to the 2nd of December. Both teams are out of FA Cup action. So,
right. So it's a bit too far to preview that game, isn't it? It's a bit too far.
Yeah. No, it's Southend have got to get players back and embargoes lifted and all sorts before then. So we'll look at that one next week, Luke.
Yeah, we'll talk about Woking v Chesterfield then. Woking, of course, a poor result. They're on awful form at the moment. We spoke about Dalsall being the problem. I think it's starting to show. I know it's only 1 game, but it's starting to show that maybe there's more going on at Woking than just the manager getting it wrong, because they've gone and lost again to Oldham at home. Chesterfield are going to come into this game on the back of a defeat. Now, I haven't said that in a long time. I think this is an interesting game because Woking will be looking to bounce back at some point, and they will. And you mentioned it, didn't you, earlier about, Chesterfield's everyone's cup final, isn't it? Because they want to be the side that beats them. And if Woking want to somehow get into the playoffs or still have that ambition, you'd say this is a game where we can take points off Chesterfield. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I don't see Chesterfield taking 2 losses in a row, if I'm honest.
I don't, but that's just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, no,
my prediction goes against what I've just said.
I know, I agree with you. I mean, Woking are at home. Chesterfield do have to come down the road. It's a long way, etc., etc. Woking haven't appointed a new manager. I think Darren Sauls, backroom staff are still involved. They're just on a poor run of form, and they just can't seem to kick themselves out of it. They need a new manager, I think, quite quickly to get a bit of a difference in there. I think Woking can't be looking at the playoffs at the moment. I think they just got to think we've got to consolidate and not sure we don't slip into that sort of relegation battle, because it's quite, they're not far off being in that position. Yeah. So Chesterfield, they let goals in. They're not imperious at the back. They will let goals in. But I think they'll be too strong for Woking tomorrow night. And Paul Cook's too much of a wily old fox. He's not going to take two losses in a row. And I think they'll win 2-1.
I've gone totally against what I said earlier. This is how I think Chesterfield are going to see it. I think they're going to see it as we need to bounce back and we need to be ruthless. And Joe's agreed with me. I didn't think anyone would agree with me. I've gone for 4-0 to Chesterfield. To be fair, like I said, I think Chesterfield will bounce back. Woking, I thought it was harsh to sack Sal. Yes, it couldn't go on. But you think of what he did last season. We talked about him being a victim of his own success. I would have thought at Woking, the way that he changed that club from being a side that not many people talked about to being a side that everyone were talking about being a promotion candidate, I thought it would have earned the respect to at least see the season out. And obviously he hasn't. And I think there's more problems going on there. So for me, yeah, I could see Chesterfield winning 4-0, and purely because I think they'll have a reaction and working and low on confidence. To add on that, Paul, it does look like you've got a thought in your head there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Darren Saul took them to a newer level or higher up the league last season. What we can't forget, though, with Woking is they have had investment. And, people who invest money into football clubs do want to see a return. Even if it's a minimal return, they'll have their own expectations. And he might be a victim of his own success, but he has done it off on the back of a bit of investment. And he would have had investment in the summer. I think his recruitment has been a bit indifferent. I think we'd all agree on that. And because of that, they've not kicked on to the at least consolidated where they were. They've not done that. You'd expect them maybe to kick on and be one of those teams. Now that the Wrexham and Notts Counties of this world have gone, he's like, Woking are one of those teams actually who are going to take that place with Chesterfield, with Barnet, with Oldham. And it just simply hasn't happened. And if I was investing a pound notes into a football club and I see my team in the bottom 6 rather than in the top 6 after what we did last. And yes, there is a bit of benefit of doubt over that being a victim of their own success, but I don't see that as much in Woking because of the investment and because of the setup they've got. And you're right, I think there's something not quite right at Woking in terms of the playing staff, how they must be playing on the pitch. It's easy for us to surmise what might be happening, but I certainly think I never like to see any manager getting sacked. I think you're the same, Luke. Managers getting sacked is not right. It's not fair at times. And, we don't advocate the sacking of managers. We just see it as fans and go, well, actually, I think at this point in time, he's got to go. And I think it was the right time for Darren Saul to go. And I'm pretty sure he'll pick up another project and another job somewhere and take him on.
Well, I think some Football League sides might be looking at him because I think he's a manager that could manage at that level. And I think there'll certainly be some National League sides looking at him very shortly when more managerial departures do happen. The final game then, I believe, we've got 2 games now because I forgot about that game at the end there at Barnet v Oldham. But York versus Oxford, this shouldn't be, we wouldn't have said this at the start of the season, but this is also a bit of a 6-pointer. York have won 1 home game all season. They've got to win a second. They've just lost at home to Hartlepool. When is that home win going to happen? Oxford come into this on some decent form, to be fair. So it kind of goes against, Oxford's form compared to York only winning 1 at home. But I've just got a feeling against an Oxford side, if York do turn up, I do think that they would have enough to beat Oxford if they did turn up, but they haven't turned up all season, so maybe that's a bit of a big ask. I've gone for a 2-1 York win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone 1-1. I think when you look at it, right, York have got to look at this and say, if we lose to Oxford City, we go 4 points behind them. Okay, so that's got to be their first. They're 21st, Oxford are 20th. That's got to be their first port of call. We need to get a win out of Oxford City. The least we need to get is a draw. Oxford City on their side are looking and going, well, look, we've picked up the last 2 wins. We've got 6 points out of the last 6. We're above this team in the league. They've only won 1 at home. We're more than capable of holding our own in this league against teams, especially in that bottom half. They're going to go into that with full of confidence. And Oxford made some couple of good signings, one of them being Cole Capecqua from Bromley at centre half.
Yeah.
That
he
guy,
Maidenhead, didn't he? Yeah, Capecqua.
He played at Hemel Hempstead in the National League South. He's played for Maidenhead in the National League. He knows what it's about. He defends that football. He played against Wealdstone early in the season for Bromley. He's a presence at the back. They're the sorts of signings that Oxford City need to make to consolidate in the National League by taking a bit of National League quality of players that aren't necessarily playing on a regular basis for other teams, and fusing it with what they must. They've got a little bit of quality, especially in that final third, with McEachran and Parker. And I think I've got really a good feeling that Oxford will be that one team that do not get relegated out of that bottom four at the moment. And you know my views on York. I think they're just listen.
Do you think they could go down?
Who, York?
Yeah,
all day long. Don't talk the talk.
Even with the money, do you not think that they'd spend enough money, or do you just?
They've spent money in the Summer League, and look where they're at. They won one game at home all season. They've brought in an established National League manager in Neil Ardley. He's not caused them to be any different to what they already are, which is hugely inconsistent.
But they've got like Akiniyemi. Of course, he's going to come back. He's proven goal scorer. I've got nothing personal against York whatsoever. But don't come out at the beginning of the season and spend all that money and tell people that you're going to get in this, that, and you're going to do that, and you're in the bottom four, and then you're in fifth from bottom, then you're fourth from bottom. You win one game at home all season. They're struggling, and I don't care on the size of them, right? I don't, so what? They shouldn't be where they are. They are where they are. They haven't been anywhere else but where they are, and I can't see it changing. Can't wait for next week when we talk about, or even Thursday when York lose to Oxford again, and we're gonna be talking. We're gonna have to do a full podcast on York, to be honest, because we generally could talk for hours with what's going on there. But did I ask? Yeah, you gave you a prediction, didn't you, for that game?
Yeah, I've gone one all. I think York have got to try and take us out of the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they win. They're at home, but I think Oxford will just gain that bit of momentum, bit of confidence, and will do what they can not to lose the game up at York's ground.
Barnet versus Oldham. Then this is a very, very good game. Maybe a few weeks ago you would have said should be a win for Barnet, comfortable win because Oldham was struggling. Oldham come into this on decent form at the moment. Of course, they won the last game. Prior to that, draw to Eastleigh. If we actually look here, they were unbeaten in the last 3 games, and they've only had 1 win in 5. Barnet, 2 defeats in the last 5, 2 defeats on the bounce, to put it that way as well. Losing to Chesterfield, I saw them in person. I thought they were a good side. Certainly gave Chesterfield a game in the first half, but were certainly exploited in the second. And then against Gateshead, from what I saw from vlogs and highlights, they were absolutely battered and probably they could have lost that game 4-5-0. The first half, Gateshead must have hit the woodwork about, I'm not even exaggerating, about 5 times. And it wasn't like it was the other side of the bar, or it were literally inches off going in. So, to be fair, this game now makes it very, very interesting, and I think it might actually be televised. This should be a very, very good game to watch. I'm hoping it's televised. If not, I'll be buying the stream. So from what I take from it, I think Oldham are going to go there and get all 3 points. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Oldham win. Barnet will probably score with the amount of goals that they do score, but for me, they do look like they're in a bit of a bad patch at the moment, and I think Oldham can take advantage of that. How do you see it going, Paul?
I think you're right. It's a very typical National League game, this, isn't it? There's quality on the pitch, there's pace, there's power, there's goals, there's good defenders. Both teams can mix up how they play. If someone said to me, what National League game should I go and watch? An Oldham Barnet game could be one of those, because that's just a very typical National League game. 2 very good footballing sides. I believe Oldham played very well on Saturday. I think it's one of the best they played in a long time. And are they turning the corner? That question could be asked in a few weeks, Luke. We'll see how their results go. But are Barnet on their blip of part of the season that most teams seem to have at some point? They'll go on a run of games where, you look at it, they've won 1 in 5, Barnet, rather than sort of winning 4 in 5. So I can't separate them. I've gone for a 2-2 draws. Like you said, they both can score goals. They've both been punished with goals scored against them over the last few weeks, and let's just settle to letting goals in. it does see it on paper. It seems like a very, very good football match to watch, and I would gladly watch. I think they're both good footballing sides with that pace and power as well added to it. 2-2 draw. I think 2-2 draw is going to be what I see, and Chesterfield will be over the moon about that. Bromley will be over the moon about if that happens, because it just sort of pulls them all in together and leaves Chesterfield going sort of that little bit further ahead. But Dean Brennan's going into this game knowing his next game's against Wealdstone. So, he's going to want to come out with his strongest squad possible to come down to the Vale, because, there's a rivalry there. So they're not going to want many injuries Wednesday night, but they're certainly going to want to win. They're not going to want to go into the Wealdstone game at the Vale with 3 losses, on their record in the last 3 games. So,
especially because Wealdstone are good at home. It's not like
Exactly. Listen, that's not going to be his overriding thought without a shadow of doubt. His overriding thought is we've got to beat a strong Oldham team, and the rest that's that little bit of a blip. But you don't want the pressure put on him going into that game and further forward. If they're going to be title contenders, or at least strong playoff positions in the top 2 or 3.
Well, I think that more or less wraps up the predictions. Please remember to like and subscribe if you're watching this afterwards as well. Let us know your thoughts in the comments too on any of the games. Thank you to Dave, who joined us earlier tonight. Paul, once again, thank you very much for joining me.
No problem, mate. It's good to have you. Good to be on the extra Monday night that we get to do every now and then.
It's good. It's good to chat with you about the National League, and hopefully we'll be doing it again this Thursday, previewing Saturday's games, because the game weeks are properly starting to get interesting at the moment. Now they're starting to maybe I'm starting to enjoy the upcoming games a little bit more, because we've had a few game weeks where they've been a bit naff between mid-table sides or first versus 24th, where now it does feel like it's starting to get very interesting. I forgot to actually show this, didn't I? These were the predictions from last week. Paul, you had an awful week. So did I. 2 points. Not one of us has ever got below 3 points prior to the last one. So very, very poor. You'll be wearing that Wealdstone shirt.
There was certainly a few. There were certainly a few coupon busters, wasn't there, on the weekend? Chesterfield losing, and who else was there? There was a couple of others. The results sort of passed you by, but you think, blimey, that Oxford City winning 4-0, those sorts of things you wouldn't necessarily predict those any week. So a few coupon busters last week. Let's hope this week's a bit more settled and goes with the form that we've sort of discussed and results we've chosen.
Brilliant. Well, Paul, thank you for joining me. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in, and we will see you on Thursday. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.